Welcome to G's Backstage Pass. Today, my guest is Marika Flatt. Welcome.
Happy to be here. Thanks. Fun to be backstage.
Thank you. So, Marika, you're the owner at PR by the Book, you're a public speaker, and you're a storyteller. Who is Marika?
So, I have been a book publicist for 25 years now. I know I don't look
Wow.
like it. But yes, I started doing this right out of college.
Hmm.
I just was one of those lucky people who found something that she loved right away and stayed with it. And that, led to me being an entrepreneur.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, I'm happy to be in a position where um, I can be my own boss, but
Hmm.
I also have a team of amazing people. And who is Marika? Yeah, not a mystery. Somebody can find lots of stuff out there online about me, I'm sure. But one of my most recent accolades that I
Hmm.
am very excited about was that I was named Outstanding Austin Communicator.
Oh,
So,
congratulations. That's
thank
awesome.
you. Yeah.
So, what was it like growing up, and how did that shape your life?
So, first of all, I always loved to read.
Hmm.
When I think about being a kid and I grew up in a small town, some of my most favorite memories were curling up on my bed with a good novel, at
Hmm.
whatever age, middle school, even high school. And so I always loved to read. And when I got into high school, kind of my older years in high school, especially my senior year, I was really developing an interest in TV.
Hmm.
So I actually had an opportunity to um, co-produce and host a little show on a cable network called The Teen Report, which
Nice.
really was fun to see kind of the inner workings of what it's
Mhm.
like for a TV show. And and then that led into the college report. And so I was kind of bit by the media bug, I
Mhm.
guess, pretty early on. And I did quite a few internships in college that were media focused. So I interned at the NBC station in Dallas.
Mhm.
I wrote for my college newspaper. I did some production at the little TV studio that was on my college campus.
Mhm.
And, I really was doing all those things thinking that when I graduated, I was going into TV. But, I always tell people nowadays that internships tell you what you do want to do and what you don't want to do.
Okay. Yep.
And so that last year, when I was in college, I was really exploring the PR side of things
Mhm.
because there were some things about going into TV that I didn't love. I didn't love the idea of moving to a really small market and working holidays for however many years and being apart from family
Right.
and just the hourly deadlines weren't a good fit for my type A personality.
Right.
So I thought, you know what? PR is really interesting. And I love the way that when I was at NBC in Dallas, we were working with the PR representatives on the various stories that we were working on. So
Mhm.
I started looking down the PR path and really stumbled upon an opportunity right out of college to work at a very small book publicity firm. And I just loved it from the beginning because it was blending that love of reading with media and how I knew that media was there to tell a story and could shape, particularly, because I was most interested in TV early on. I loved how TV journalism could shape, the story that was being
Mhm.
told
Mhm.
or just to get a message out. And so I just felt like I had found the perfect job for me.
That's amazing because, we have that in common as well. Because my background was radio, and I thought I
Mhm,
was gonna go into the radio, and then, like you said,
mhm,
when you decide if you wanna do that or not, and then did
mhm.
the touring thing for 25 plus years. So, how did you know that publicity is what you wanna do with your life?
Well, I just really loved it from the very beginning, being able to tell readers
Mm-hmm.
through media outlets about authors that they would be
Mm-hmm.
interested in and stories that made a difference in people's lives. And, even the early days of book publicity, I had to say, memoirs were not hot in the late
Really?
90s and the early
Really?
2000s. Yes, I mean, you would pitch a media outlet and the response was typically something along the lines of, "Well, that's her story, why should we care?" kind of thing. "Oh, didn't he write that for his grandkids?" And, that was kind of the prevailing thought about memoirs. And then the last, I will say, 5 plus years, memoirs are so hot,
Yeah.
and those are such fun stories to tell because we all have a story. We
Yes.
all have lessons that we've learned from
Mm-hmm.
what we've done. And so I think that, book publicity was just a good fit for me from the very beginning. It's funny, early on in my career, I wrote an article called "What is a Book Publicist?" Or no, it was called "The Publicity Puzzle."
Oh,
And
okay.
it was and really what it was educating people on what does a book publicist do, because so funny because I would go to, extended family gatherings and my whole family early on would say, "Oh, you're working at a book publisher now. Like you're publishing books." And I would say, "No, no, 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 no. I'm not a publisher. What I do is tell people about the books when they come out and they
Right.
launch." And so I wrote this article, The Publicity Puzzle, and it's funny because it got picked up all over the place.
Nice.
And, I would get requests for years about using it, or, can you update it to a current date and then we can use it. And so it was just kind of an interesting thing that nobody knew what a book publicist did. It was like, "Oh, is this a job? People people promote books, so um and when you see the characters played in a movie that are publicists, it's funny because it's kind of a typecasted character. It's someone who's
Mm-hmm.
running around in high heels and
Right.
city
Right.
and, having lunch meetings with the Today Show and very,
Right.
all top tier media outlets. And yes, I mean, there is a little bit of that, but because I have been in Austin since 1997,
Mm-hmm.
we have always been publicists from a digital perspective, I guess. I mean, back in the early days, we called it smiling and dialing because we were on the phone all day long because not everybody was addicted to their email yet. And so we were,
Smiling and dialing. I love that.
yeah,
That's awesome. Yeah.
yeah, just pitching on the phone all day long.
Hmm.
And I like to talk. So it was a good fit. And you being a radio, you like to talk too. So,
Yes.
it's just you find those jobs where you're like, "Oh, I can
Right.
do what comes naturally to me."
Right, exactly. Like in radio, everyone thought like it was so exciting, and I'm like, I'm literally talking to no one. I mean, I'm talking to like a large audience, but there's no interaction at all. Like it's
Right.
not a conversation, and you're just talking to. So it's time to celebrate you and Doug and the team and PR by the book. 20 years in
Yes.
business. That's
Yes.
amazing.
Thank
Congratulations.
you. Thank you. Yes, it's been such a fun journey, and I'm so, so very thankful that we have had a strong team from the
Mm-hmm.
beginning.
Mm-hmm.
We have had amazing longevity with our team over the years, and our we're working with a team of publicists and others who are just really committed to helping authors build their brand. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's just our team has made it pleasurable to stay in this business and to
Mm-hmm.
stay excited about books and authors. And we've worked with so many great publishers over the years. And you know um for the most part, from the very beginning, because I had been in this business prior to starting PR by the Book.
Mhm.
I already had connections in this industry and, had a really good track record of being able to do what I said I was going to do. And so from the very beginning, our work has been very much um, through repeat business
Yes.
and word of mouth referrals.
Yes.
And so that, it's just a blessing because we can be selective
Mhm.
on who we work with. And that's important, in this day and age of self publishing. There's a lot of really great self publishing going on, but there's also a little bit of, somebody just kind of throwing it together um, and not putting together a quality product. And
Right.
so there are projects that we do decline because we just don't think that we can do well with
Mhm.
them. But, I do always take the time to dig in and do my homework on a
Mhm.
project. I talk to the author and really try to get a feel, even if I initially review the project and prep for a phone call and I'm just not sure, I'm leaning towards a no, but I'm just not sure. I'll still do the free 30-minute discovery call because
Mhm.
there have been times where I have uncovered information in that call that I all of a sudden have a publicity vision for. So,
Right.
yeah, so it's very customized and individualized and not a cookie cutter kind of situation. And I think that's what helps us be successful pitching to media outlets that, each one of these projects is an individual little baby for us, a little book baby. And so, we treat them with care
Mhm.
and a lot of communication with our clients and letting them know what we're doing, what's working, what's not working,
Mhm.
how we're going to tweak our pitches or use something a little bit more timely for
Mhm.
them. And so I think that all of that goes into 20 years of staying in this business. And a colleague once said, and this was actually a handful of years ago, said, "Wow, that makes you a business athlete that you
Business
did this
athlete. Yes.
for so long." And I thought, "Oh, okay, I like that because I've always been into exercise and fitness, but never an athlete. Never classify myself as an athlete." So I was like, "Okay, I like that term."
So, having been in this business in 20, over 20 years, you must have seen a lot of changes. What do you
Mm,
think of what are some of the good changes that you've seen? And also, what do you think the future of
yeah.
publicity is with everybody having access to this studio in their house? They can
Mhm.
promote more, but there's also, like we talked about, I talked about on other shows, there's over 2 million books being released every year. So that
Right.
really makes it very important to not only stand out, but to have the right team to
Right.
really get your story out there.
Right. So, as you can imagine, in this many years of business, we work really hard to stay ahead of the curves. There's a lot of curves. The book industry is always changing. And as you can imagine, I, the role of a book publicist 20 years ago was
Mhm.
extremely different than it
Mhm.
is now. So, I remember 25 years ago when I started, I mean, we were literally faxing press releases. Stand at
Right.
the fax machine and you would just use those little sticky notes and you'd put the little
Right.
the to from and send the
Yes.
fax through. And, now, I mean, we're communicating through direct message on
Mhm.
somebody's social media platform to try to get in touch with someone or build the relationship. And so, that's uh, a big river to jump over.
Mhm. Mhm.
And, we just we work to stay ahead of the curve. We work to make sure that what we're doing is providing an author with what they need. So, for instance, we do virtual book tours, and
Mhm.
in those tours, um, we do them differently now than we did even a year ago right now.
Wow.
last November, we had a team meeting where we really dug into the virtual book tour and, how are these working, what's not working, and spent a couple of months reshaping
Mm.
how we were delivering virtual book tours to make them more effective,
Mhm.
and have continued to modify that a little bit this past year. And so, you know, maybe, what was working even 5 years ago, one of the things that I think about is talk radio.
Yeah.
You coming from the radio world, you probably know this better than most, that talk radio used to be an ample opportunity out there for publicists to
Mhm.
go after those spots. And I had what I would refer to as hot contacts in
Mhm.
radio, where I'd get on the phone on a Friday and just start calling my radio friends.
Mhm.
And, I'd maybe set up 15 interviews in a day, just
Wow.
at different, radio stations. And because talk radio as we know it has been a little bit usurped by, of course, podcasts.
Podcasts. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and, and then even satellite radio, there's
Mhm.
still shows on satellite radio, but not as many opportunities to just sit and talk to someone on the radio. So, I mean, we did this huge pendulum swing from pitching talk radio to making those relationships with podcasters.
Right.
And, and trying to find the ones that had an audience, and,
Mhm.
so that would be an example of how things have changed. I will tell you that even since March of 2020, when the pandemic hit,
Mhm.
publicity has changed quite a bit since then in two really massive ways. One would be, now almost everybody will accept an electronic review copy of a book,
Mhm.
because when that all happened in March of 2020, it was like nobody wanted a piece of mail. They
Right.
were like,
Right.
"Don't send
Right.
it to me in the mail."
Right.
And
Right.
so the book trade publications created online forms where you could submit an electronic copy for those, and then everybody kind of followed suit of like, "Oh, okay, I guess I can read an electronic copy on my iPad." Now, there are still some media outlets that do prefer a physical copy, and I get that. I mean,
Mhm. Mhm.
I read both. I read on my iPad and I read physical copies, and I think there's benefits to both. But that was a major change. And then another major change that was really good for publicity was that all of a sudden people could do TV segments all over the country from
Yes.
their home.
Yes.
And, so we would have an author based in, let's say, San Diego doing
Mhm.
a TV interview in Chicago from a home studio. And that just made TV segments really much more accessible uh,
Mhm.
for our authors, because prior to that, the only time that you could do anything, via kind of satellite would be a top tier opportunity. Let's say you
Right.
got on a top tier show and maybe they'd let you go to the Austin studio
Right.
for a satellite interview. So that was a really, really good rose amidst the COVID thorn for
Yeah.
publicists, and it still exists. I mean, all of our TV friends, for the most part, are still doing, now they're kind of doing a hybrid. They're doing
Okay.
some in
Okay.
studio and still some Zoom, because they realized how great it was that they could have access to people all over the country or the continent,
Mhm.
and not have to have them come in studio. So that's been a great thing for book publicity.
So let's talk about your team. And like we said earlier, I mean, it really comes down to, we talk about this in Rockstar. We talk about this, like you use my example of the music business, is that you go to a concert and it sounds and looks great. There's a ton of people behind the scenes, he,
Mhm.
she, and they, that are making sure that that happen. And it's the
Yes.
same thing, especially for authors getting your book out there. It's the team you have, the editor, the publisher,
Mhm.
the graphic designer, the publicist, everybody. So let's talk about, like, having that team, and what do you look for in authors before they
Mhm.
bring you onto as part of the team?
Yeah, so obviously, if an author already has an established brand,
Mhm.
that is a plus.
Mhm.
Not all of our authors do, but some do. And if you're asking me what I would look for, I would say that's definitely a bonus
Okay.
when working with a client. And it's really, a brand is a lot of things folded in together. So it would be, they already have social media platforms established, up and
Mhm.
running. They've got followers on those social media platforms. And when you talk about the product of the book that's being published, obviously that has to be high quality
Yeah.
because that is their calling card. So,
Mhm.
well written, um, very well edited, have a great book cover because I can't tell you how many projects come across my desk that maybe you're a great book and a great story, but they have a really poor cover that's kind of slapped on there, and they're not investing in that, in a great cover.
Mhm.
And so I always start with some of that advice when I'm talking to authors. I'm very transparent with
Mhm.
authors. I know that it doesn't do anybody any good to just say, "Oh, everything is great. You're doing everything right. So let's just move forward," when it's not. And
Right.
so if they don't have a book cover that I feel like is putting their best foot forward, I will tell them that.
Mhm.
And I'll give them suggestions. There's things that they can do to better that. And so, having all of those kind of together as a package is great. Other things that I would look for in an author is someone who understands the understands the process of publishing a book and publicizing a book and the big picture of things.
Right.
So,
Right.
it's setting the stage. It's an
Mhm.
investment in
Mhm.
their brand. What do they wanna do down the road? Do they wanna write more books? Do they wanna find a bigger, better publisher? Do they wanna get the opportunity for speaking engagements?
Right.
There's so many things that this a publicity campaign can lay the groundwork
Mhm.
for someone. So having them really look at it as a big picture and not just, what's happening this week or looking at the media hits that came through for that month. It's certainly something that we're always looking at and always making sure that we're where we want to be with that. But it
Mhm.
definitely is a big picture kind of situation. And then also in terms of an author, making themselves available for
Yes.
interviews.
Yes.
We work with and we understand everybody's busy.
Mhm.
Our productivity driven world that we live in, especially here in the United States, we understand. I mean, people are there's a lot of our authors that are attorneys or doctors or professors. They've got important jobs to do and they can't always be at the beck and call of media, and we get that. And
Mhm.
so, we just try to set our authors up for success from the very beginning of a campaign. What are your blackout dates that you're absolutely not available? What are
Right.
times of the day that are good for you? What are times of the day that just absolutely do not work for you? And a great example of that would be if there's a professor teaching a college class, they just can't be available while they're teaching that class. And so it's definitely, a partnership.
Mhm.
It's something that, we work together on developing, what's gonna work for you as the author. What do we think you need to do to be successful? To a certain degree, you do need to make yourself available if at all possible, and um, I was setting up some TV interviews this week
Mhm.
for, just a few business days down the road, and our author, a couple of them said, "Okay, sure, I can do that on." I got in touch with somebody on Friday and said, "Can you be available on Monday?" And,
Right.
he made himself available. So, I guess that's a lot of things rolled up into one answer.
Well, I really, can relate to what you're saying is it's a partnership.
Mhm,
It really is, and, like, for anybody who's writing a book, they didn't sit down and write it maybe they did, but probably not in 30 days.
mhm,
And if
mhm,
it's your life story, it's been written over 10, 20, 30 years. So
mhm,
I think when people engage working with a publicist, they might just look at the outcome of, okay, this type of media or this many interviews this month or something, and got to really understand that you're building a brand and
mhm,
that takes time. And
mhm.
you really need to surround yourself with the
Right.
right team. And it's
Mhm.
just like that in the music business. You hire people, you pay them well, and then you sleep at night
Yeah.
because you don't have to worry about that. So it's like,
Right.
yeah, I have this with a lot of my guests talking about, like, it's really more of a partnership than
Mhm,
somebody's hiring you to do something. It's like if you take that mentality of, like, you have specific goals that you want, that the author has, and you work out the timeline, and it's
mhm,
like, and yeah, I think it's brilliant that you guys have been in business for 20 years, and like you said, you've seen everything change from the fax days. Oh
mhm.
my God, you're bringing me back to fax days. Remember that sound? And oh, right. And then now you're able to do TV,
Mhm,
pretty much anywhere with,
mhm,
in the home studio. So I'd really love to know, aside from, you know, um, those great tips and ideas, how can authors stand out a little more? Say that they're working with you as a publicist and they're going on
mhm,
TV, but what can
mhm,
they do to stand out a little bit over
mhm.
the other authors that have publicists?
I think one thing is being very media savvy and
Hmm.
being able to handle a good interview. So you understand what it takes to be a good interviewee. And so making sure that when you get those opportunities, that you're really there doing your very best to entertain, educate,
Hmm.
inspire,
Hmm.
all of those things, because that's what it's really about. I also think that, and this is hard for some authors, but really making sure that you're utilizing all of the digital components that are available to an author these days.
Hmm.
So, on their social media platforms, whether it be Instagram or Facebook or Twitter, there's opportunities to engage live
Hmm.
with your following.
Hmm.
And some of the most successful authors are doing that. They're engaging through, Instagram reels, and they're on Facebook lives, and they're doing Twitter chats, and they're just there, like, in real life person, um, building a relationship with their
Hmm.
followers, and therefore their fans, their readers, their buyers. And so I think that's one thing that really sets authors apart, is that if they're willing to go that extra mile. And I get it. I mean, it's time consuming. It is hard to kind of roll into your week, into your day.
Hmm.
You have to be always thinking about, when can I do that live opportunity?
Hmm.
And, what's worthwhile for me to talk about? Most most authors don't have fans that'll just sit there and want to hear about their boring day necessarily. Some
Right.
do. I mean, if
Right.
you're a
Right.
celebrity author, then yeah, that probably works for you. But, finding those opportunities of what to engage on and when. And so I really think that the authors who are taking advantage of those digital opportunities are really setting themselves apart.
Yeah, because you're sharing your story.
Mhm.
And the more that the readers and your audience, your listeners, your viewers get to know who you are, who's the person behind writing
Mhm.
the book,
Right.
that's going to make it so whenever you get them placed on media, they've
Mhm.
already got, like, all right, this, and it's all congruent. It's all, like, authentic to who they are.
Right, right. I was reviewing a potential client this past week, and
Hmm.
I went to her website and I looked, and there were no photos at all on the website. And yet this was a very personal story that she was telling in her book
Mhm.
that's coming out next year. And, before I even spoke to her on the phone, I sent her an email and I said, um, here's some things I wanted you to know. And a piece of free unsolicited advice is put some photos up on your website, because even I, as someone who was just, I mean, I had a purpose to be on her website, but I wanted to see who she was. I
Right.
wanted to put a face with a name and a bio.
Right.
And, I told her, and she knew, she agreed with me wholeheartedly and was planning to do that. But I told her, if you've got readers that are coming to
Mhm.
your website, they want to see you in order to build that relationship with you.
Right.
And, so it's just sometimes little things like that that authors aren't necessarily thinking about, but that are very important.
Right, because sometimes, as business owners and as authors, we can be too close to our product, and we
Mhm,
don't see it from a different perspective. And then
mhm.
working with a professional team, it's
Yeah.
like, whoa, that's really what the story is. That's what we
Mhm.
should be promoting. So let's talk about your travels and writing for the Texas Lifestyle magazine. I understand you went on the tour over summer, right? Like a rock
Yes.
star tour. Did you guys go on a rock star tour and travel around? And love to know more about your thoughts on that and writing for the Texas Lifestyle magazine.
Yes. So I stumbled upon an opportunity also 20 years ago. It coincided with me leaving the company that I was at to start PR by the Book and realizing that I had, um, some leeway in what I was doing. And so I actually, there was a local magazine starting, and I started travel writing just
Mm-hmm.
on the side as a hobby, really. And so it was a way for me to stay very connected to my journalism background.
Mm-hmm.
And I have always been a writer.
Right.
When I was even growing up in school, loved writing and won awards and got accolades for my writing.
Nice.
And in publicity, we're the longest thing we're writing is a piece of press material, which would be, press pack or
Right.
what we call experts pages. Pitches are much shorter. Pitch is kind of like an email from me to you about why you should interview an author.
Mm-hmm.
So I really tapped into that travel writing as a way to stay connected to that journalism
Mm-hmm.
background. And over the years, I was really just kind of, like I said, doing it as a hobby. I would take a couple trips a year with my husband along, and I would write those articles up, and I just developed a lot of relationships. I'm a really big connector by nature. Like, it's something I
Yes.
can't even turn off if I tried.
Yes.
And I can tell you a million stories about how connections that I didn't even realize I was making at the time,
Right.
ended up developing into, beautiful things in my life. And so I just stuck with it, and it evolved over the years and became more and more a part of my life. And about 8 years ago, had the opportunity to go into business with a magazine that was, I was actually very involved with the writing of this magazine,
Mm-hmm.
and had the opportunity to go into business to expand it statewide. And so it was my brainchild. And
Nice.
so kind of took the reins and developed a more active role. So that's Texas Lifestyle Magazine. And we are, our tagline is everything that makes living great in the Lone Star State. So it's all the
Nice.
fun stuff. So it's
Nice.
travel, food, wine, entertainment. Um, we don't try to compete with some of the other magazines out there that are talking serious issues and politics and
Mhm.
social issues.
Mhm.
We don't spend time on that. But it's been really fun. It's still what I would say is kind of like nights and weekends for me. Um,
Okay.
PR by the Book is full on, 40, 50 hour a week job.
Right.
But I have been able to stay very tied in to journalism through that. And
Mhm.
I say I get paid in travel, so it's great.
Nice. That's awesome. Well, this is Backstage Pass, and it's Rockstar. Now's the time in the show when I wanna know, who is your favorite rock star?
So I love that question. I really do. I have a very
Thank you.
eclectic taste in music. I
Okay.
love a little bit of everything. And I was starting to, I was this morning as I was looking at that question, I thought, let me just think about the last 5 playlists I've listened to on Spotify. And
Mhm.
so it was basically Lionel Richie,
Ooh,
Elton
okay.
John,
Yes.
the soundtrack of Mamma Mia,
Okay.
the
Yep.
soundtrack of Dirty Dancing, because
Oh,
one of
yes.
one of my
Yes.
most favorite travel articles that I wrote was actually this summer. I went to the lodge in Virginia where they filmed Dirty Dancing.
Yes.
So when I go on a trip, I like to listen to the music of
Mhm. Mhm.
where I'm at. So if I'm
Mhm.
in Italy, I'm listening to an Italian playlist or,
Nice. Yeah.
and so I love jazz. I
Mhm.
love so many types of music. My 15-year-old son would say, "Well, mom, you don't like rap." If I say, "I like all kinds of music," he'll say, "You don't like rap," because that's what he likes to listen to. But, I think a little bit of everything, and I don't have a favorite rock star necessarily, but the conversation just came up in my house a day or 2 ago. We were talking about how expensive this particular concert was that a friend of ours went to. And my 15-year-old said, "Mom, who would you pay $1,000 to go see?" And I said, "No one." I don't wanna go to a concert that
Yeah.
bad, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And for me, I grew up in a musical family. I'm not musical, but my dad and my brother played in a band together for 20 years.
Nice.
And so
Nice.
I love the intimate settings.
Mhm.
I would much prefer to go to a bar and
Mhm.
sit and listen to a stage that's right there in front of me, um, than go to a huge concert,
Yeah.
because I grew up in that setting. I grew up being able to listen to my dad and my brother's band in, small venues.
Yep.
And so that's really near and dear to my heart is, just kind of go into a small place, listen to some really great music but I have to say I would love to see the Bruce Springsteen concert coming to Austin I think in
Ooh,
February.
yes, yes. Is that the one where the tickets are going through the roof, right? That's what I
Yes.
heard on the news.
Yes.
Yeah, that's like, and I'm like, wow, yeah, but 2
Mm.
years without touring and production costs. Yeah, I know. I
Yes.
know. And
Yes.
Austin is such a great town for live music.
Mhm.
And like
It
you
is.
said, there's so many venues. I don't even know if some of those venues are still around. I lived there for a while. But you could just literally go into like just a bar with a small stage and then just
Yeah.
see this incredible. I actually worked with an artist based in Austin, Eric Johnson,
Oh, yeah.
the
Yeah, I know
guitar
who he is.
player.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
and we would and it was so great because and we toured a lot all over the US, and after the and he's for people that may not are familiar with him, he's just this incredible guitarist. I mean,
Mhm.
like the best musician, best guitarist I've ever worked with a great voice, and it
Mhm.
was a small band, but after the shows, I'd have grown men coming back to the soundboard crying because it was so emotional. He
Yeah.
has a way of playing the guitar to make it sound like it's singing.
Mm.
And it was just yeah,
Yes.
go ahead. Yeah.
I was just gonna say there's so many great guitarists here in
Yeah.
Austin, and,
Yeah.
it is, I mean, live music capital of the world, and
Yes.
so, it is a great place to be able to go see. You can see live music any day of the week, pretty much downtown, and even the suburbs have, uh, downtown areas now that are just filled with bars that you can basically bar hop from place to place and see some
Mhm.
great live music even in the
Yes.
suburbs, so you don't even
Yes.
have to go to downtown Austin anymore, which
Wow.
that's nice to have those options.
So, how can people work with you and Doug and your team at PR by the Book? What's the best way for people to reach out to you and work with you guys?
So our website is prbythebook.com,
Hmm.
and we have heaps of information there that people can read and tap into and get in touch with us that way. We do, the traditional publicity campaigns. We also do digital only, social media only campaigns.
Hmm.
And another option that we have not mentioned yet today is we have a membership community called Author to Influencer Accelerator that is
Okay.
very low cost, very high value for authors who can't afford to hire a publicist because not everyone can. And so people can go to authortoinfluencer.com and find out lots of information about that. There's an education series, so they can tap into the workshops. They can also tap into our private group where I'm in there. In fact, that's what I'll be doing after I get done talking to you. Is I'll be doing a session in that accelerator group. So that's also another great opportunity, is our author to influencer, for people
That's
to.
author-to-influencer.com. I'll
That's
add that
right.
in the show notes as well. That's
Yeah.
brilliant. Well, Marika, thank you so much for taking time today. We went back in time. We're
Mhm.
celebrating the 20th
Yes.
anniversary of PR by the Book.
Yes.
Please give our best to Doug and everybody on the team. And I just want to thank you for taking time to be on the show today.
Such a pleasure. So fun just chatting and talking about the biz.
The biz, yes. So learn more about Marika and her amazing team at prbythebook.com. And also, I'll put this in the show notes. Log on to author-to-influencer.com and we'll write up about that as well. So I really want to thank you for taking time. I really appreciate it.
Happy to be here. Thank you.
Until next time, cheers.